Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about the film The Devil's Stairway, which is a South Korean film produced in 1964. It's one of the most famous Korean films of the 1960s. It talks about a doctor who had an affair with a nurse, but nobody in the hospital knew about it. It was something a bit clandestine. And then the hospital's director, he had a daughter, and his daughter developed romantic interests for this doctor. And then her father, the hospital's director, he talked to the doctor and asked the doctor if he was interested to marry her daughter, because he wanted to leave this hospital for someone. He needed someone to take on the hospital after his death. And the director found that the doctor would be a perfect person for that. And then, of course, the doctor, seeing the opportunity to have money and power, he left his lover. However, his lover, the nurse, she told him that she was pregnant. And then someday they started to argue in the stairs of the hospital. She fell down, lost her baby, and was seriously hurt and started walking on crutches. And then she was seriously afraid of having some disabilities in the future. And then, even though the nurse was in the hospital, sick, she threatened to tell everyone that the doctor was the father of her baby, that the doctor pushed her through the stairs. And then the doctor was about to get married, and he needed to silence his lover somehow. Someday, he gave her a sedative injection and decided to kill his former lover by throwing her in a kind of pond located on the background of the hospital. And then he did that. However, even though the nurse was sedated, and of course she was supposed to be asleep, she woke up and she started to struggle for her life. But then the doctor pushed the nurse through the water, and then her body disappeared. And then, okay, she was killed. He got married with his fiancée, but he was always very disturbed, very scary, having visions, seeing the spirit of his former lover. He started to be very disturbed, aggressive, even with his own wife. And he always tried to find out if the body that was found out in the pond really belonged to the nurse. Because when the body was found 6 days after her missing, she was recognized by a gown that she was wearing in the hospital, but her body and face was too disfigured to be immediately recognized. And then the doctor, he also had to face some angry looks of the chief nurse, some starings of her as if she knew about something. And whenever that he was in the hospital, he saw his former lover, he got seriously disturbed. And someday when he was returning home on a rainy night, there were some crutches by his door, and then his maid told they belonged to a peddler of fruits who had some disabilities, and she forgot about the crutches there. And then he was extremely annoyed. He wanted the crutches to be thrown away. And then, as time passed, his wife started to think that he was completely crazy. Because whenever he saw his wife, he had the impression of seeing his former lover, the nurse. So he became extremely aggressive with his wife. And then there was, after the honeymoon of the doctor and the daughter of the director, there was an idea that water should be pumped out of the pond, so it could be constructed some new facilities of the hospital in the place where the pond was. And then the guys who were working there to pump the water out, they found out a kind of necklace that belonged to the nurse and had both the picture of the nurse and the doctor. And then it came to the police a guy who was too poor. His daughter was in the hospital and he didn't have any money to take the body of his daughter out of the hospital and pay for a funeral. So he threw the body of her own daughter on the pond. And then he only turned it into the police after many months. And then the police chief asked him, but why you showed up just now? Why you're telling that just now? And the guy said, oh, the hospital director gave me money to be quiet about it. And then, as the doctor's wife thought that he was crazy, she talked about it with her father. Her husband was really aggressive. And someday, when her husband was out of the hospital, she went to the hospital to talk to her father about the symptoms of her husband. Her husband saw his wife there and he started beating her immediately. It didn't matter to him if everyone was looking, if it was in the front of her parents, if she didn't do anything wrong. He started to seriously beating up his wife. And it took place exactly in the stairs. And then his wife fell in the stairs, in the same way as his former lover had fell out of the stairs. Okay, his wife needed to be operated. Her parents were in the surgery room. Her husband was there taking part of the surgery. But then it was a weird vibe inside of the surgery room, people staring at each other. And then after a while, it was disclosed that the nurse, the former lover of the doctor, she never passed away. She was alive all along. And whenever the doctor had those visions and thought that he was disturbed and that it was someone who would find out about his crime and so on, it was just his former lover trying to take revenge on the cruel way he tried to kill her. She survived. The body that was found on the pond didn't belong to her. It belonged to that poor man who threw the body of his own daughter on the pond. And considering that the director gave money to this poor man, it seems that the director knew about the crime of his son-in-law all along. But he allowed him to marry his daughter anyway, even though he was aware of everything. And then at the same time, when the nurse showed her true identity, that she even remained working in the hospital, the director knew about everything. But we know doctors and nurses, they need to wear masks very often. So the doctor didn't realize that. And as soon as this happened, the police came to arrest the man because they found out the necklace with both his picture and the picture of the nurse. Then everyone found out about his crime. And then he got extremely nervous, extremely aggressive, and fell out of the stairs again. And in the end of the film, we have the confirmation of the nurse that she really wanted to take revenge on her father.